So, right, another question for you. Who would you regard? I know we've talked about probably all of them already, so you've got to pick one of them. Your most fiercest rival, the one you knew you had to be on your A game the most out of all of them. Then you got quite a few to choose from. Is there one as a standout?
Well, for longevity, it has to be Frankie, doesn't it? I mean, I've had different drivers go through periods of form, don't they? Where you've got to think, well, he's the best driver out there at the minute, so I've got to try and beat him, but consistently, right from when I started, Frankie Wayman Jr. was a top driver, and when I finished, Frankie was a top driver. So my whole career was a lot shorter than Frank's, but he was always there all the way through. And then, we locked arms quite early on, which it's inevitable, isn't it? You both want to be the best, don't you? And it's can't both be the best, can you? One of you is going to be the best at any given time,
and family history as well.
Yeah. Well, family is me and Frankie used to play at mud together, didn't we? When we were little, we've grown up in the sport together in a way, and like I went off and did my thing with hot stocks for probably 2 or 3 years after minis. So when I came into Formula One, Frankie was right at the top, probably right up there with Lundy and Falding and them. And I came in and I got hit the ground running because I've got good form with my hot stock, good experience and stuff. And it didn't take many years before we were sort of at each other a bit. And then I suppose throughout our career, we were always me and him for a long time, weren't it? Not just us, other drivers have patches of form and stuff, but consistently, probably me and Frankie were at the top for a lot of years there, weren't we?
Yeah, I like to think you were the two to beat. If you were the Ryan and Tom of that era, if you like. You two were head and shoulders above everybody else, and the rivalry.
Friendly.
Yeah. When you talk about rivalries, though, it's interesting because like there was old man Stuart and Frank and stuff like that, and then you talk about like with the era that even though Peter was racing all through that period, it was Peter versus Lundy. It wasn't Peter versus Andrew or Peter versus Frank. It was Peter versus Lundy, wasn't it? And then it was like you and Frank. Then it became you and Rob, and there was always those two little, those two that you always classed as a rivalry. Even though sometimes, I mean, Rob came in and he got a brilliant
sledgehammer.
Yeah, well, he did, but unfortunately, his first attempt wasn't the best because the Terry George car just wasn't the right piece of kit, was it? Yeah. But it's like I say, Andrew obviously had hard races with Peter, he had hard races with Lundy, but you don't sort of class it as an Andrew and Lundy battle. It was always Peter and Lundy. You and Frank, it's weird how it works out, although they were all battering 7 bells out of each other.
Great era, though. Fantastic era.
Yeah,
it was fantastic. That. So
I always said to people when they asked me, even though me and Frankie, we fell out a lot on track. We fell out a little bit off track sometimes over different things. It's a game, innit? A lot of it's, if you can get one up on each other a certain way, you do. And then at the end of the day, it were massively important to both of us, stock car racing. More so, I think what Ian says about family history, it made us what we were. Stock cars was almost everything to us. And you wouldn't leave no stone unturned to beat the other one. But there was a massive level of respect, I believe, from both of us for the other one, even though
that's between everyone.
You know what I mean? It's like we clashed a lot, but I don't think there were the odd time it went a little bit over the top. But I don't ever remember wanting to like destroy Frank to like really hurt him or really damage him or anything.
No.
Never.
It's just the way sport should be.
It's the nature of the sport, and it's gladiatorial. It's like motorized boxing, and it gets physical now and again, and you've just got to deal with it, and just, you know, it is what it is, isn't it? It's good for them. That's what the fans want, though, isn't it?
Yeah. But talking of family, then, how was it racing against your brother?
I was about to ask that. Yeah.
Yeah, he was. Well, Stuart's quite a bit younger than me, and there's 9 years between us. So when he come into the sport and started to find his feet, I've been in it a long, long time, and you know, I always wanted him to do well, but when he got really good, I didn't not want him to do well, but I still wanted to beat him. Yeah, you know, and he wanted to beat me, and you know, it's hard, isn't it? It was hard a little bit. It was hard. Yeah. Because I knew what he had inside of him, because I had it inside of me, if you know what I mean. And but obviously when I packed in racing and Stuart found his feet and had his second wind at it, I was really proud of how he drove. You know, I used to try my hardest to get behind his racing then and use a little bit, if I could help him with a little bit of what I knew, to get him to the very top. You know, that would then be quite a big aim for us both. And he got there, and he was just disaster what happened to him, really.
I know.
From his stock car point of view, you know.
He was at his peak of his powers then as well, wasn't he? Height of his powers. He was the main man, and he stepped up and he took the battle to Tom, who was still then he was the number one, but he held 3 of the 4 titles, I think. You know, he's only the European he didn't have, and he finished second to Tom in that. And he was on a crest of a wave, having struggled to get, wanted to get the national points. He wanted to get, he wanted the gold, and then he got it. And then it was only a few months later he had to pack in, which was a desperate shame that was. Yeah, heartbreaking really. But yeah. There's a sort of picture of you two behind there. It looks like you're giving him a bollocking there, actually.
I think for me, one of the highlights of the Gears and Tears programme was you two in the garage with Cecil thrown in. Yeah. I thought that was highly entertaining.
It was, wasn't it? It's great value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you playing to the camera a little bit, I would imagine, or was that always like it then? Or were Stuart and Cecil always at each other all the time back then?
No, it's just they were just very different how they went about things. You know, Stuart. Yeah. The trouble was Stuart was a young lad as well. Like when Gears and Tears was on, Stuart would have been, I don't know how old he'd have been, but like I say, he's younger than me, and obviously younger than Cecil. Cecil's more my era. Yeah. And Cecil's a very organised fella. You know, he used to come from his day job and he'd turn up at our garage and he expected everything to be in order to get to start work, which is not, you know, when someone's driven nearly an hour to get to you after doing a full day's work, you don't want to be messing about, do they? And looking for stuff and not being able to find what they need. And the trouble was, Stuart were a bit messy, like younger people tend to be, and a bit disorganised. And Cecil used to get so cross with him, you know, for that side of things, you know. And I just used to like shake my head a little bit about, you know, when they got. But deep down, they really liked each other. You know, they never fell out. You know, they were the best of friends, but very different. You know, in that aspect.
Great value. Yeah. That must have been good fun though. Must be happy times that when you look back.
They were when you look back. I mean, that was one good thing about Gears and Tears at the time. It was quite intrusive, but it's left a bit of something for the memory banks, and you know, something to look at. You know, it's all on video, isn't it? There to watch if you want to
on YouTube. You know? Absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I was going to ask another one. We've talked about your favourite car and all the rest of it. What about your favourite track, past and present?
Sorry, didn't catch that.
Your favourite track, past and present.
Oh, favourite tracks. I don't know. I used to like Coventry because of the whole evening. Really, it was an event, wasn't it? You felt like you were at a proper event every Coventry. Used to see the same faces, and you know, you were like a proper stock car gathering, weren't it? Weren't all about the racing. You know, invariably, it were very good racing because it had the car numbers and everybody were there who were at the top of the sport. So I used to like Coventry. It was where you had all your best wheels on, and you'd have your, if you wanted to buy a new tyre, that's where you buy 2 new tyres for the Coventry final, you know, and then you probably muddle through it. Rest of the month, you manage if you had to. But Coventry, you always had your best equipment because everybody did. And it was just like, it was just exceptional, weren't it? And it's
prestigious,
so
wasn't it?
Probably have to be Coventry.
Yeah, that's interesting.
As an actual track, what excites you? It wasn't the most exciting track. You know, you look at tracks like in my early career, I was lucky enough to race the Formula 1 round Crewe in its last year. Did about the last 4 meetings there. And as far as like being on your toes and having to be really alert, Crewe was different gravy to Coventry, you know, excitement.
Could you imagine Tom and Ryan round there now?
Oh. Yeah, cool. Well, yeah. Well, the
Dangerous,
old Bellevue, even the old Bellevue, Hyde Road. That was a lovely track, I'd imagine, to race on. Did you ever race at Bellevue? You probably didn't, did you? No, we drove. You were your dad's testimonial, weren't you?
I raced the mini stock round there, but never a stock car around the old Bellevue.
No,
but I mean, I also used to like, you know, that. I mean, I'm more of a shale person, I suppose, predominantly throughout my career, but I weren't too shabby on tarmac, you know, as well. And I used to like Ennisford. I used to like the big fast tarmac tracks because I think Formula 1 stock cars are more. I just think they're a better animal on shale as regards. I just think they are, you know, and on tarmac the only. Yeah, I think they're just more spectacular, Colin. They're more made for it.
Yeah.
But as far as tarmac goes, from a driver's point of view, the big fast tarmac tracks are the only time you can stretch the engines, you know, and really open them up, like your Ennisford and your Ipswich. And I used to quite like racing around them big tracks on tarmac. Well, yeah.
Did you race the Bellevue, Ian? You didn't you?
I hated it. Yeah, I did race it. Absolutely.
Why did you hate it? Why?
I just couldn't get round it.
Right.
I mean, one night, Bammy was on holiday and Alan Barker was running it. And in the Grand National, I'd got put through the fence when I had my McDade car. And we were trying to get the car out the fence, and bloody Alan Barker switched the lights off in the stadium. And because Frank used to transport us, Frank had to go and drag Alan out the bar and switch the lights on because we still hadn't got the car out the bloody fence. So no, for me, the only thing I liked about Bellevue was when I was a spectator as a kid when they come out the tunnel, and then your dad's testimonial, Andrew. You know, when he came out of that tunnel and the stadium erupted. That, you know, that's a memory that I'll never forget. You know, it was awesome.
Yeah, the testimonial. We talked about that before, haven't we, Andrew? About when I did heavy metal, we talked about testimonial. A lot of work went into that day, didn't it? It was a lot of work, but it worked out in the end.
Wonderful day that was. Wonderful, really. You know, it was really fitting, weren't it? If anybody deserved that sort of send up, if you like, I suppose it was my dad, weren't it? You know,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
definitely. What was great as well was the celebrity race. One of his best mates, Doug Cronshaw, drove a blinder as well, didn't he? To nearly won that, didn't he? That was great to watch. Yeah, that was good to see that. Yeah, definitely happy times. And then a race going the wrong way around as well. That was another great idea. That was
my dad.
I know. Yeah, fantastic.
I don't know what he was thinking at the time. I think he wanted to do something like novelty value, and he come up with that one. It was like weird, wasn't it?
Yeah, good idea though. People remember it, don't they? So we're talking about your dad. Well, I mean, I know you did a thing with Nigel Hari about. So he did some like 20 questions with you, and one of them was, who was your favourite driver? And you said obviously your dad. So I want to ask, who was your favourite driver apart from your dad? If you had, did you follow anybody else back in the
day? Probably Peter when I was a young man. You know, like
Peter
teenager.
Yeah,
because I used to knock about a bit with Peter, as Ian will know, because like he was friends with Peter, and you know, he still is. Like, but in them, we were big friends with him as fellow drivers, weren't you? And you all used to do stuff together and that, and you know, we were good. That was a good era of the sport. That was them late 80s and that they were good. and I used to enjoy mechanicking for Peter. He was my favourite driver. Yeah, other than my dad, as I said, and my brother. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Oh, that's good.
So it's one of those things that a lot of people think Andrew started his racing career in Peter's car, because you raced him a few times, didn't you? But he didn't. He actually started in one of my nails, did Andrew? Had his first meeting in the F1s in mine.
Was that in
Mark
Bradford?
Webster took him out as payback for being a little shit when he was in the minis or something daft.
Yeah,
I've got a picture there somewhere.
What happened there was that, as the story goes, I don't know if it's 100% true. I don't think Mark's told me himself, but I think when me and little Frankie were younger, so we're young kids kicking about the pits, we must have gone up to Mark Webster's car and laughed at it. And Mark Webster he said he vowed he'd get us both back one day for that. That was his time.
That's brilliant.
He actually took. I remember driving Ian's car because we did a swap, didn't we, Ian? Ian raced my hot Stox and I raced his Formula One at Bradford. Can't remember which way around we did it, who were first anyway, the Bradford one. I remember, I think I had the harder task, didn't I? Because I was getting in this animal and all that horsepower and bloody hell, I was a bit of a fish out of water. And I remember, I got took out and I was stuck in track or something. I remember I come off and you give me a right bollocking because I was cranking it over on starter to get off the racing line. He said, don't do that, you'll burn me starter out. But then you raced my car, didn't you? And bloody won everything.
I raced yours at Scunthorpe. It was funny because obviously your dad was promoter at Scunthorpe then. But I raced yours and managed to win Eton final. But the only reason was I couldn't reach the brake pedal because Andrew's brake pedal was miles up from the accelerator. So you had to lift your leg right up to press it. Well, at that time, Andrew was a lot shorter than me and I couldn't get my knee up. So I was just using other cars. And to be fair, I had no chance of winning the final until Andy Oggy decided to take Ray Witts out on last lap. And I was just plodding around in third place. And it didn't go down well with a few people. But no, it was good. And your dad come up to me afterwards in the bar and he said, I'm buying you a drink here. And I said, all right, why is that, Stuart? He went, you've just saved me thousands because Andrew told me that car was a nail and would never win anything. Yeah, good times.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. So what about if we look at the back to the current era and the sport as it is now? What about we went to Aldershot about what was it, a few weeks ago? Was that a welcome addition to the sport going to Aldershot, do you think?
Well, I think so. I think it's good to take the sport to different places. I think there should be one weekend a year where maybe you go Aldershot one year, Bristol the next, back up to Scotland, maybe over to Yarmouth, just to take it into a different audience. Because those since we go to Scotland, a lot of fans have started coming down to watch Formula Ones down south. So I think it helps just to kind of spread the word around. And we kind of really need to do that at the minute because the tracks are getting more spread apart, and we just need to kind of keep the fan base going because it's too easy for people to drift away from the sport. So I wouldn't like to see 3 or 4 meetings a year down there, one every maybe 2 or 3 years. I think it'll be an ideal thing.
What do you think, Ian?
Yeah, I would agree. I think. I mean, we do a similar thing in the carts. We were up at Crimmond a fortnight ago. I think you should always have an away day during a season, whether it be Cowdenbeath, whether it be Aldershot, Bristol, whatever. But I think each year there should be sort of one away day, so to speak, because it's good for the drivers as well. When you go to tracks that you've not raced at before, it makes it that little bit interesting. I know when they did the Golden Jubilee tour or whatever it was, and they took in a few different tracks, didn't they? Barfords and stuff like, and Bristol they went to. No, I think it's good. And as Colin said, from what I heard, I didn't see it, but what I heard, they had a bloody good crowd. And, hopefully one or two of those might travel that little bit further to Northampton or whatever. So yeah, I think there should be an away day every year.
What about you, Andy? Do you think the same? I mean, you've raced hot rod around that track, haven't you? I think.
Practice hot rod round it.
Practice, yeah.
But yeah, what the other two fellas have said, they're bang on the money. You know what Ian says. It's a good idea, isn't it? An away day. It's almost like it's just an adventure, isn't it? Something to break up the normality of going to the same tracks. And obviously, there's politics involved. You know, it's good for it to happen. It's quite a financial outlay for the staging track, if you like, isn't it? You know, because it'd have to be a guest promotion from an existing BriSCA member. So there's a financial risk, which I think is what's probably been the main reason for it not happening so much over time. I mean, the thing is with Aldershot, it's one of Woody's tracks, isn't it? So he can just switch one of his Northampton, one of his allocated dates. It's an easy thing to do, but the minute you start going to places like Bristol and non-BriSCA Formula One promoter ran tracks, if that makes sense, that you're into teaming up with an existing promoter and persuading him to release one of his dates to make it happen. But this is the thing. They need to look at the whole picture, don't they? Because the sport needs little shots in the arm, like an away day, little thing. And rather than being more of a selfish way of looking at it, promoters need to look at the long-term longevity and the long-term health of the sport. And if you can go to a different neck of the woods, a different area, there's oval racing people all over the UK, who know BriSCA Formula One, but they won't travel 2.5 hours to watch it. So if you can take it to them as just a bit of a one-off, even if they don't travel to many meetings, it's a feel-good fact. It's keeping it out there, isn't it? And and it might entice a driver as well, a driver or two who really likes it. And they should be doing it 100%. I mean, we've just come back from Cornwall this weekend. I mean, that might be testing it to the extreme, but we raced a little venue in Cornwall, and what a cracking little action track that'd be for if you could double up with it, like St. Day and a Taunton or something. And if they could put a financial package together to probably attract 25 cars, I'm sure they'd get the crowd to make it viable, because there's a lot of people down there.
Yeah, it'd be something around St. Day, wouldn't it? Formula One's, that would be something else.
It would be tight, but everybody said it'd be tight around Aldershot. It wouldn't be,
I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it. 15, 20 cars around St. Day. What a cracking day that would be. Yeah, and I think
it would be really good. I mean, if nobody's ever been, Colin's obviously been, but if you haven't been, just a quick, it's like it's almost built on a slope, this track. The home straight is probably 8 to 10 feet higher than the back straight. So
like Crossing Hand was back in the day on Speedworth. Probably you won't know that track, but yeah, it sounds similar.
So like you're going downhill round turn 1 and 2, and then uphill round turn 3 and 4. And they are actually 4 separate turns. They're totally different. They're unique. And then you've actually got a 5th turn. You've got a dog leg down the back straight. I mean, they all laugh and say it's shaped like a pasty. That's the shape, but something like that would be brilliant as a one-off. It really would.
You can see the thing is, you just see from you talking, it puts a smile on your face. I mean, I went to Aldershot, I was there, and it was a fabulous afternoon. A lot of people say, okay, the racing was the heats weren't very exciting, a bit roundy, but obviously the drivers are still trying to find their way, because it's a unique track with 2 totally different corners, one really tight and one longer bend. And it was a difficult circuit for the guys to sort of work out straight away. But it was a brilliant day, and then a massive crowd. It brought a new crowd. We had the Speedworth crowd there for the National Hot Rods, and everybody thoroughly enjoyed themselves. The drivers really enjoyed the track. They thought it was a challenge, and they really liked it and want to come back again. And especially with the sun was out, it was perfect, really. And it was just a fabulous afternoon. If you did that, like I said, at St. Day or one or two other tracks, and you went and travelled, did a little bit of a tour, just like a brief tour each year, and you go to these different venues where you're likely to draw a new crowd, and people will go to watch the F1s because they're in town, and it's the first time they've been in town for God knows how many years. Then it's got to be a plus. It's got to be the way forward, really. And And it just rings the changes as well, because the fixture list comes out and all right, it's great to have speed weekends and and whatever, but it's quite predictable, and it's just nice here and there just to break it up with something different, and it just raises the profile, doesn't it? Really, I think
when we used to go to Scotland, people used to go to meetings to talk about going to Scotland, enjoy it, and then come back to the bread and butter tracks and say, did you go to Scotland? And it kind of become more of a social thing for everybody, and it actually encouraged people to go to meetings down here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, what about Ireland? Is that not a possibility? There's plenty of venues out there that I'm sure they would love to see the F1s.
Yeah.
Well, whether that's possible or not, I'm not sure. But
why not?
We've with the karts, as I say, we did Crimmen for the first time in 12 years 12 years ago we first went there. But we went there. We did Crimmen on the Saturday and then Cowdenbeath on the Sunday on the way back. But you get to Cowdenbeath and it's still another 4 hours up to Crimmen from Cowdenbeath. And what a track. But I'll tell you what, promoters there, honestly, they gave every one of our drivers a goodie bag. Cans of Iron Brew and all sorts, and some Tunnocks biscuits, and they were absolutely brilliant, But talking of going to Ireland, we did the Isle of Man a few years ago, and unfortunately now the Isle of Man aren't part of the ORC, so you can't do it anymore. But we went there, and all right, it's expensive to get there, but we got the government paid us 250 quid a team to turn up.
Wow, that's tremendous. That is.
Yeah,
well, that's great. We should try that. Why not go on the Man? I've never been there. It'd be interesting to go.
Lovely little track. Did you race the minis there at all, Andrew? Or the V8?
Well, the Onken.
Yeah.
I raced the hot stocks there. I think we went definitely twice, because we used to have an annual trip in the hot stocks there.
Yeah.
And again, it comes back to that thing, doesn't it? You were dead right what you said, Ian, about something annually, an away day, like you said. Just whether it's a mini little tour over a bank holiday weekend, in a different part of the country. It really is something they should. I mean, they've done it with Scotland, haven't they, before? But I don't know what's happened there, because it seems to have stopped, doesn't it? What's gone on with Scotland?
Yeah, well, I think it was a Dean and a Dean, Reese and Cowdenbeath trio thing at one time. So I don't know if your Stox are interested in doing it. I'm not 100% sure, but again, it's one of them where two promoters have to give up their dates in England to be able to run them up in Scotland, which seems a little bit, those dates should be there. Even if it was like a consortium thing, like they do with Gala Night or the British or whatever, a shared event. But to create something different. I mean, the thing that blew me away with the Isle of Man was the pits is actually the village centre green. It's the village green with houses all around it.
Sounds like Nelson.
Yeah, but no, like Andrew said, do something on a bank holiday. Back when I started racing with the F1s, Easter weekend, we raced Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. It was always Odsal on a Friday, and then you'd whatever Bellevue Saturday, Aycliffe Sunday, Sheffield Monday. Right? Well, if you planned something for an Easter weekend where, you did a little tour or whatever, just something a bit different, because as you say, it just becomes that little bit mundane, doesn't it? For the fans as well as the drivers.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. Definitely.
I think Andy, you've been up to Crimmen and you've been to St. That just adds a bit of spice to your season, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that Crimmen with
and
those tyres as a fence is something else. Yeah.
I mean, we do it with the Formula 2s. We like have once, the way it's worked the last couple of years, we've had a once a year trip up to Scotland. Like this year we did Crimmen and Cowdenbeath. And it's just something different, isn't it, Ian? It's a long way for us. It took us 12 hours without stopping to do Crimmen. But I didn't begrudge an hour of it, to be honest with you, because we got there and they were just so happy to see travelling drivers, that's in F2s. So I'm not saying Crimon for Formula One, but there are tracks out there, aren't there? That's what we're saying. And like you talk about Ireland, I mean, we had our world final with the Formula 2s over in Nuts Corner in Northern Ireland.
Remember you writing about it.
Cracking venue, basic venue, but nice enough, but cracking track, should I say, would suit Formula Ones down to the ground. And an hour and a half away, an hour away, there's other tracks in Southern Ireland, which are just as good, if not better. Yeah. And it's not really a drama. I mean, some of the lads who are northerly based, they'd be on the boat from Liverpool, and Nuts Corner's literally 15 minutes from Belfast.
Yeah, I was going to say, you got Agadawi and Tully Roan, haven't you? Yeah.
Things like that. If it could be put together, I mean, it's about money, isn't it? If the finances somebody took the risk, I suppose, whether it be existing promoters or another promoter over there buying a day, it's a risk, isn't it? I think that's what's always held it back. But they can't continue to let this. We can't get bogged down with politics on here, I know, but they can't.
We can. Don't worry.
They've got to look at ways of shaking the job up, because you can't keep going in reverse, can it?
No, agree.
No, which is you've got to do something definitely to try and change things around. You're definitely right. Just at this point, I was going to. It's because it's only been a week ago since the passing of Tim Mann. I wanted to mention here because I know Tim was highly regarded in the sport, and a very, very close friend of yours, Ian, and a very good close friend of many people in the sport. It's been a great loss, isn't it? To Tim going is just it's a very sad time, really, isn't it, for to see him not with us anymore.
Yeah, I mean, Tim was the best man at my wedding. I've been asked to be a pallbearer and try and stand up and say something at his funeral when the dates arrived. His son John O's asked me if I'd do that, which total pleasure, privilege. I mean, we're two so totally different characters, but we just have always got on. From when I first met him in 1986, I think it was, when I first met Tim before he started racing. And the thing with him, a very quiet, selfless guy, but I think people will be shocked if they knew the number of drivers that he actually helped. Everybody associates him sort of with Tim Mann, Tim and young Frank, and then Tim with Peter in the Eurocars and stuff like that. But he helped a lot of people. I mean, he even helped your Stuart, didn't he?
Yeah, you mentioned that on Twitter, Stuart, did you?
Yeah,
he did, yeah.
A lovely bloke, a very, very clever man, and he will be missed. Well, definitely by me. I used to speak to him. I spoke to him a couple of days before he passed away. So yeah. Terrible loss.
Yeah, I mean, I got to know him pretty well back in the day, because remember we did that thing for Sky Sports on Northampton. We had the celebrity drivers come along, and he was there describing an F1 stock car, what it constituted, and what the engines were and all the setup and everything else. I mean, he was a brilliant man in everything he did. I mean, he was a driver, he was a car builder, he was an engineer, he was a mentor, he was BSCDA chairman, he was done everything.
Promoter. Him and my dad, Dennis, bought Stoke off Andrew's dad, Stuart.
Yeah. And I got to know him really well, because it wasn't that long ago I spoke to him on the phone, because I did some piece blog on my website about putting the Welsh rights and how to improve promoting the sport from a publicity media point of view. And he rang me up, and we spent about a good hour putting the Welsh rights and what we thought we should do and all the rest of it. He had so many ideas that would help the sport, and it was very sad to hear. I mean, you got to them as well, didn't you? Presumably, Colin, you're doing pretty well too.
Yeah, I mean, when you look back on it, wouldn't it have been great if he could have run the sport? Somebody like him, he had some great ideas. It wasn't always for himself. Too many decisions are made now for like a vested interest in one sort of, or whatever. He would make decisions based on the sport, and it would have been great if he could have run the sport back in the day. You know, I think it'd be a lot better. But it's a terrible loss, and that's kind of bit lost for words, to be honest. Yeah.
What about you, Andrew? You got Junior in pretty well as well, didn't you?
Yeah. I mean, I think in our sport, as time goes on, you know, it's inevitable, and it's an old sport, and we're going to lose these characters, unfortunately, now and again, aren't we? These, you know, individuals who have made the mark on the sport, you know, in their own different ways. And you know, I'll just remember Tim mainly from a stock car point of view. You know, he sort of moved the bar a little bit, didn't he? When he just before I came into the sport, really, and when he teamed up with young Frank with that Clive Linton car, you know, Nigel Wharton was the standout fastest car on tarmac, and he was big block powered, weren't he? And Tim was clever because he must have persuaded Clive to build a chassis for him. But the story goes, Clive wasn't a massive fan of young Frank's, and if he'd have known that young Frank were going to be the driver, he probably wouldn't have built the car. That's
true
the story
I've
been told.
True story, Andrew. Yeah.
And obviously Tim put quite a clever small block in that car, but I think Tim was always when he spoke to me, he wasn't about the big budget engines. He didn't want the sport to be that sort of sport.
No.
He built, his engines were small block but light, obviously weight advantage, but you know, just made the power in the right places to do the job. And when he packaged young Frank, who were a rough diamond at that point, into his level of knowledge and preparation, he just raised the bar of tarmac racing, especially, didn't he?
Yeah.
And
I mean,
you know,
a lot of the rules now, the inside weight, the rear weight, the ride height, all this was stuff that Tim was behind bringing in, even though they all affected his car. But he saw what the future was. You know, he knew if it carried on the way they were going, it was going to kill it. So he was very selfless in that way. But like Andrew said, and it was a true story about Clive. Clive didn't know the car was going to be piloted by young Frank, otherwise he wouldn't have built it. But you know, Tim was involved in bringing the sport on a long way, and then also involved with trying to hold it back and keep it to a good level. You know, I believe the years when we ran the Sportsman tyres, the back outside on the tarmac, were some of the best years of tarmac racing in F1s.
Yeah. Well, you know, he's left a huge legacy, and I think we all can just say, rest in peace, Tim. You'll be missed, mate. We've got the British Championship coming up soon at Bradford. This will probably be our final question before we wind up. But well, two questions really. Bradford, how do you think things are going there from the sports point of view, and who do you think is going to win the British? I'll start with Colin, since you're closely connected.
Well, I like Bradford's a fantastic track. I think it's what we were saying earlier on about big tracks and fast and the speeds there. And people talk about, is it supported enough? The thing with Bradford is such a big place. A crowd of 2,000 or 3,000 in there looks lost, whereas a crowd of 2,000 or 3,000 around Mildenhall, the place would be overrun. So it's people moan or say that it's not as well supported as it should be, but it is better than people think. That's one thing that people have said. What was the crowd like? That main stand holds what, 10, 12,000 people, far bigger than any other stock car track we got. It's a fantastic arena, and as far as the racing goes, I think the race is brilliant. It's fast, it's action packed. I love the place, to be honest. I think it's one of the best tracks we got. Who's going to win the British? It's going to be difficult to see either Ryan or Tom, but I think Lee Ferris has got a good chance, and I tell you who else goes around there is Jack France. It's his local track, and he can shift around there. So I'd like to see somebody different win it, and it'd be great if somebody like Jack won it.
Yeah, I think most people would say heads Tom, tails Ryan, but you know, on the it's stock car racing. On the night, anything can happen. You know, like you said, Colin, you know, there are outsiders that are quick around there. Craig Finnegan again, he's quick there, but your money would almost ride on those top two at the minute. But it's up to the others to stop them, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Talking about heads or tails, you're definitely heads at the moment. Your picture.
Colin, Neil,
you disappeared. You're just sinking out of.
I'm doing it on my phone, and everything's all top. So if I do it there, I'm all belly.
That's all right. I think we can put up with it, mate. We can put up. So, what about you then, Anne? Did you think similar, or do you think someone else can break through and win it?
Well, they all said Tom had won it last year, didn't they?
Yeah.
You know, and Finn Sargent won it. So
yes, absolutely.
You know, the unpredictability of stock car racing can rear its head now and again, can't it? You know, that's the thing. That's the beauty of it. And I don't know. Yeah, if you're gonna talk about favourites, you've got to talk about, you know, them two drivers, I suppose. But Craig Finnegan's brilliant on Shirley. He must be having a bit of a lean spell, I suppose, from looking at it at the minute. You know, I don't know, but I'm sure he'll be having his A game at Bradford. And I'd fancy Lee Ferris to make an impression, because Lee's had a bit of a stop-start season. He had big trouble with it. He had his shale engine. I think Derek was telling me he went for like a routine check at the engine builders or something, and he found a fault on the dyno, and it set him right back. They've been waiting for parts for ages, so he hasn't been out in his own shale. I think he's only been out in it at European, and maybe one other or something. He's not done anything in it. So,
no.
I mean, I've not been to Bradford much. I've only been once since it came back this time. But I watch a lot of the online stuff and the videos and enjoy that. And Lee Ferris been rapid around Bradford on occasions. You know, last year, really quick. You know, he's had the pace. He's been on the same pace as Tom. So don't rule Lee out. That's what I'd say. Got a cool head for them big occasions as well. Let's just see. I think it should be a good night. It deserves to have a good night, doesn't it? Because you know, it's just great that it's back. Really, you know, I know it's got its issues, and I know it's not, some parts of it are not everyone's cup of tea. But the main thing is stock cars are there back in that stadium, and you know, Russell and Graham, they're trying the level best, aren't they? And you know, without the passion they have, you know, they're certainly not doing it on a cold, hard business sense, are they? It's the passion. And the sport has to be thankful that people like that are interested enough, I think.
I can agree more with that. I'd say one other driver we haven't mentioned is Matt Newson, you know, who has been desperately close to winning a British on a couple of occasions. Once when your brother Stuart managed to move him out of the way in the final bend at Bellevue, and then obviously at Hendersford, I think when Lee wiped him out trying to win the race, and Tom came through to win it, which is actually the thing with British. You know, it's one of the races that actually does seem to produce some really memorable races. Always seems to be last benders as well. We had the same last year, and obviously with Catherine and Ryan. We've had it with, like I say, with Matt on a couple of occasions. You know, and I think the last Bradford one was an epic race with Ryan won. I mean, that wasn't a gimme all the way through. That was on, you know, that could have been anybody's right until, you know, past halfway. So I won't be surprised we get an unusual result. I think, you know, so Jack would be a good result. Jack France could win because he's got that great publicity with, you know, the Napa, his Napa car, and they get, you know, a lot of publicity out there on social media. So, and from a publicity point of view, I think it'd be good for sport if he won it. But it'd also be great if I'd love to see Matt win. You know, if he could just get one of these major titles under his belt, that'd be good for him, because he admits himself, it gets to him. He goes to the race, you know, one of these big races, wondering what's going to happen next, like in the world final when he got rolled over on the first bend, and you know, it's just something always seems to happen. If he can keep out of trouble, out of mischief in those early stages, and the big guns up the front, you know, get in trouble or wipe each other out. Maybe he'll, even if he lucks into a win, that'd be good enough.
Yeah, it'd be great. It'd be great to see Matt Newson leave all them cars at home.
Exactly.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And just focus on his own racing.
Spend all week beforehand working on one car only.
I
That's
agree.
his. And
Yeah, just for that 1 week.
Get his head in gear and get up there and concentrate. I mean, I think Matt's great. He's so open, isn't he? You know, you know,
he's an open book,
openly tells the world that his frustration and how much he wants to win a championship. And yeah, I feel for the fella because he's from my era a little bit. You know, in some ways, I raced against him when he was up and coming and that. And you know, I'd love to see him win it. I really would. I just wonder how we can focus absolutely on what you need to do. I mean, the opposite end of the scale, Ryan Harrison is going to be going to that meeting.
Yeah.
There won't be no stone left unturned. Every tyre for every race will be shrink wrapped, won't it?
Yes, I was about to say, ready to go.
You know what I mean? He might not race all the time, but you just know he'll be absolutely focused on that. And for Matt Newson to give himself his best chance, that's what he needs to do, I think. I know it's his living and all that, but you know, just
for 1 week only.
Yeah,
that's what we need to do. Yeah, 1 week only. Focus on myself. Sorry, lads. You sort yourself out. I'm sort of, you know, I'm looking after myself.
If Matt's watching, he needs to cancel his order book for that night and just look after himself for once. You know, make himself the priority.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the other things though, when you look back with the British, it has got a history of odd winners, hasn't it? You know, I mean, nobody would have banked on Finn last year. No. Back in my day, you know, I actually ended up on pole in the British at Skeggy, and Phil Smith won that one. So I think the British is one that does throw up some occasional oddballs, but yeah, Matt, I know he's had bad luck in World Finals, but it does seem to be the British that he's just been so close to it, and 2 or 3 times it's just gone away from him.
Yeah, even at Hendersford, which you wouldn't think would be a Matt Newson track, and he had it nailed that day. But
I think every driver out there, if they don't want themselves to win it, you know, if they know they can't win it, would love to see Matt Newson win it.
Yeah,
couldn't agree more. Well, thank you guys. It's been a long one. I'm going to probably have to split this into 2 halves, I think, because we've been rabbiting on for about 2 hours, believe it or not. But it's been thoroughly enjoyable, and I hope you enjoyed it, Andy, as well. It's been fantastic having you on to the podcast. And like I say to everyone who's watching, if you enjoyed the podcast, please do like, subscribe, and share the episode wherever you can. The more you do that, the more we can bring more stuff like this to you, you know, more often as well. So thank you, everyone. So yeah, we'll join you again, hopefully not that long after the British. Speak then.